Hey, it's Stephanie with The Rancher's Homestead. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm getting ready to make up some lunch, and about, 4 weeks ago or so, I shared on my gluten-free whole grains bread recipe. And that recipe, I have intended to make it all-purpose. So you can have a bread with it, and then you can take that recipe and use it for multiple other things. And today I'm going to show you one of the recipes that we use with it, and that is pizza pinwheels. So you're going to start with the base recipe, and you can jump back a couple videos. I can show it to you, or I'll link it in the description, but I'm just going to go through it really quickly here. The only difference in this bread recipe dough that you're going to make for the pizza pinwheels is you're going to start with a little bit less water. I think in the video with the bread, I say do 2 cups of warm water. You're going to actually go about 1 3/4 of warm water in this, because what you're looking for is for your dough to really come together, not be super sticky. If it's too sticky, it's really hard to work with and roll out, add toppings, roll it up, cut it, do all the things like you would with the pinwheels. So you want to start with less water and add more if you need to. So I have 1 3/4 cups of warm water in there, and I'm going to add in my 3 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And I have my raw honey here, and I'm going to go ahead and do 4 tablespoons of honey. I always just buy raw. I know with the heating process of it, you're killing some of the enzymes, but if you do, you can use any honey in this recipe, or you can even use sugar if you don't want to use honey. I always use honey though. Okay, then I'm going to turn my stand mixer on for a few seconds. And then I'm going to let that sit and proof. So you want your yeast to get nice and activated. While that is proofing, I am going to go ahead and measure out my flours. Okay, to measure out my flours, I'm just going to go ahead and use a kitchen scale here, a digital one. And I'm going to have it set to grams. Now I'm going to add in all of my flours, and you want to measure these by grams, not by the cupful. Otherwise, you just won't get the best product. Okay, so I'm going to use brown rice flour, which is 280 grams of it. I'm going to go ahead and set my brown rice flour off to the side because I am going to use it when I roll it out. Now I'm going to clear it, and I am going to do 120 grams of tapioca flour or tapioca starch. And I'm going to do 100 grams of sorghum flour. Now you can, right now I'm using already milled flour just for the purpose of this video. If you go back and watch my original recipe, you'll see that I freshly milled this flour. You can use either one. Freshly milling your own flours, there's so many health benefits to it, and I would highly recommend looking into it. Even if you have to be gluten-free, there still are good health benefits to it. But you can also just buy the flour already ground and use that too. Either one works in this recipe. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 teaspoons of salt. And 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside until I'm ready to pour it into my bowl. Okay, now that my yeast is proofed, I'm going to go ahead and weigh out my psyllium husk. Now in this recipe, I am choosing to use psyllium husk as my binding agent. For gluten-free, you will always need some form of binding agent, whether that be xanthan gum, gur gum, or psyllium husk. I love using psyllium husk. It has so many health benefits along with being my binding agent. So I'm going to weigh out 30 grams of psyllium husk into my bowl here. Now it is important to note that not all psyllium husk powder is the same, and I found that out the hard way. So not all brands are the same. The 2 that I have found to make the best product is the Now brand or the Anthony's brand. I've tried a couple other ones, and if your bread or dough or any of that comes out like a grayish color and really dense, it's not working properly. That is not the texture that it should be. And so I found that out the hard way. But now I know the 2 brands that I stick with. There might be more out there. I just haven't tried them. But if you stick with these 2 brands, you should have good product. Okay. Now I'm going to take a whisk. I can get rid of my scale. I don't need to measure anything else. I'm going to whisk this up for just a second. And then I am going to stick it back here and let it gel for a minute. While it's gelling, I'm going to make sure and I have 2 eggs and I have my melted butter. If you need this to be dairy-free, you can use 5 tablespoons of avocado oil or olive oil or any kind of cooking oil that you have. I'm going to go ahead and crack in my eggs. It really doesn't take very long for that to gel up. It'll gel right away. And I'm going to pour in my butter. And I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You do not want to skimp on the apple cider vinegar. That's going to help with the texture of your dough. Now I can pour in the flours that I have measured out. And we're ready to go. Okay, I'm going to turn this on. Now I always get just a little bit of warm water ready if I need it. But remember, with this, you want it to come together a lot more. And I can already tell I'm not going to need any water. It's actually coming together very perfectly. So I'm going to let it just go for about 2 to 3 minutes. And then we're ready to roll it out and get it ready for our pizza dough. Okay, so we have our dough all ready here. And I have a well-greased cast iron pan. You can use just a baking dish if you want. I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm going to sprinkle a pretty generous amount of brown rice flour onto my counter. I'm going to scoop out my dough. And then I'm going to split it in half. It's not necessary to do that, but the reason I do is it's a lot easier to roll out to a 1/2 inch thick, less dough. Otherwise you have this really big rectangle and then you're trying to roll that up into like cinnamon roll and so that you can cut them so that they're pinwheels. It just gets really, really hard. So I always split it, and you can then do 2 separate. If you need a lot of pinwheels, you can then roll each of them out separately, add the toppings, and you'll get a ton of them. Or you can take this other half and you can use it for something different. We actually are going to a Father's Day Creek Day tomorrow with some friends. So I need hot dog buns because we're going to do a hot dog roast and s'more roast. So at the creek. So I need to make some gluten-free hot dog buns. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to make hot dog buns out of it. All I'm going to do with that is basically shape them into hot dog buns and then bake them. I do hamburger buns that way, and it's very, very easy. You're going to take a rolling pin and you're going to roll it out into a rectangle, the best that you can. And you want it about a 1/2 inch thick. If you get too thick, then it gets really doughy and it's not very tasty. You get more dough than you do toppings, and then it's like just eating bread, which isn't a bad thing, but okay. Now that I have it rolled out, I am just going to use some of my homemade tomato sauce that I use for pizza sauce as well. This is just some leftover. We had pizza, I don't know, a week, 5 days ago or so, and I had a little bit left over, so I saved it. If you jump over to the blog post on this recipe, you'll be able to print this recipe, and I also share how I make this sauce. It's very, very simple, easy. It's the best sauce to have fresh right from your garden. Or you can use frozen tomatoes with that. Okay, so you're going to spread out your sauce, whatever sauce you'd like. Now I have some fresh grated mozzarella cheese. I'm going to spread that out. If you've ever made cinnamon rolls, this is very similar to cinnamon rolls. You're just using pizza toppings instead of sugar and butter and cinnamon. Okay. Got all my mozzarella cheese. Now I just have some deli sliced pepperoni here. You can do whatever toppings you want. That is the beauty of it. A lot of times too, we like to do, instead of traditional pizza sauce, we'll do like a ranch cheddar pizza. So we'll make ranch sauce and we will put that down as our sauce, and then we will put some cheese on top of that and roll it up, and they're very delicious as well. Okay, I'm gonna stick some pepperoni on here. Now comes the tricky part. We're gonna try and roll this up. Now a dough scraper here works very good for this because, oops, if it gets stuck on your counter, it's a lot easier to just kind of lift it with this than with your hands. Okay. Now that you have your log here, what I like to do, I'm going to move this so you can see. What I like to do is I like to just clip the ends off so you get a nice even tuck, and then you're just going to take your dough here. You can use a sharp knife or a pizza cutter, and you're going to cut them to about 1 inch, depends on how thick you want it, thick, of little pinwheels. Now you're going to stick them into your pan here. Ooh, this one, the pepperoni didn't go all the way through. There we go. And you want to leave about 1 inch in between each one because they are going to puff up as they bake. Okay, once you have your pan completely filled, you're just going to let it rest for about 5 to 10 minutes so that they rise a little bit and your oven preheats. You're going to want to preheat it to 425, and then you're going to bake them for about 20 minutes. Okay, here you have it, a delicious plate of pizza pinwheels. Now the dough, depending on how tight you make your log and kind of pinch the sides in together, will depend on if they kind of go outwards instead of upwards. But they taste the same either way, and they are so delicious. The cheese is kind of oozing out of them. We will serve these up hot with maybe some grapes or some strawberries, and it's a delicious lunch that was really pretty easy. I also got my hamburger bun or hot dog buns done at the same time, so it's a win-win over here. I hope that you go and make yourself a plate of these. I hope that you have made the bread already and you're a master at making that bread dough, because stay tuned. I will have more recipes using that same bread dough as we go on about the weeks and the months. Make sure to like and subscribe to the video. I send out one new video every single week here on YouTube. Jump on over to the blog. The link is in the description, where I send 2 emails out a week with different recipes, farm life, homesteading life, gardening, and all of the things. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you next time. Take care.